That's one story.
Okay.
And downstairs.
And the whole building is your school?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Because
Oh,
I
okay.
came to his school and saw enormous ignorance. Then I thought I would do this in my school.
It's not that simple.
He's very what he made himself is 40 and he can control everything.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
See, this is
Wonderful.
and
Okay, so we all sit. This is his room.
yeah, go everything himself.
How many years has he been here? Сколько лет?
3 года.
3 года?
Здесь.
And those are computers with different scientific programs on them?
Yes, and his students and he himself also prepared the programs for the computers, and also he installed the school.
And how big are his classes? How many students does he have?
20.
20.
You see, he can use скажите, как вот это самое, all types of projects.
But he basically has done all this himself.
And
So how many different students does he teach? He has 20 per class. How many classes? Different classes? 10?
Almost all classes.
Okay.
It's
All
about
right.
15 classes. 15 classes.
So he has 300 students.
Yeah. And TV is there, and video tape recorder there.
It's very impressive.
ионов кальция, калия, натрия.
Computers, so we test. That's actually the work which we done in American culture.
Oh, okay. No, so you tell me that, but it's one of your students. What's that? What system? Какой систем? HAL, SICAM? Electronica.
No, high school. But most of the schools have primary sections. The theme of seminar is the image of the businessman.
How many years? Сколько лет?
He said to sharpen the saw. That's
А и вот вогнутые зеркала изучаем, вот видите.
Okay, upside down. All right. I think he's a wizard.
Девушки очень не любят смотреться в такое зеркало, вот они очень не любят, когда подношу им
Oh, it's so cute.
Пожалуйста.
So he spends a lot of time. Yeah. It was built to be a school, right?
yes, but
She just comes to school. So how young are you? He comes with you in the morning?
yeah, but he goes himself home. So that's the room.
All right. So Timothy is the first year here.
Yeah.
So he just started. Okay.
Yeah, no, second year already.
Second year.
Second,
Gosh.
this year.
So you take them at what age then? Okay, they're
7.
7?
Yeah, 7. So let me introduce Mrs. Goodberry, who is Peace Corps Director here in our region. And we would like you to tell us about the Peace Corps.
Right. Thank you. It is an honor and a real pleasure to be here. I myself. Oh, it's okay? Yeah. All right. I am a teacher I taught for 2 years in West Africa, in the very small country of Togo. And then when I was in the United States, I live in California, I also taught schools. I am very comfortable coming and talking. Who can tell me what the Peace Corps is? Before the Peace Corps came to Sarata, had any of you ever heard of the Peace Corps? Corpus Mira? I think sometimes that we had a reputation in Russia, that there was some discussion as to what the Peace Corps was. But I would like to tell you a little today about the organization. In 1961, we had a very young and dynamic president. His name was John F. Kennedy. And he had an idea, even before he was elected, that he would like a program to promote peace. And his idea was that if people had the opportunity to live and work together, that they would find that they had a lot in common, that they would be able to understand one another, and that that was the way to build world peace. So in 1961, the Congress of the United States, the Congress is our legislature. It is like your parliament and your soon-to-be Duma, gave money so that President Kennedy could start the Peace Corps. And so the Peace Corps began in 1961. And the first group of volunteers went to a country that your school director knows. They went to the country of Ghana. And they were school teachers. They were math and science teachers. And since that day, 140,000 Americans have been volunteers in the Peace Corps. And in 1989, with all the political changes in this part of the world, the Peace Corps, for the first time, went to countries like Poland and Albania, Romania, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Bulgaria, Hungary. And then in 1992, the Peace Corps came to Russia. And there were 100 volunteers, and 50 came to Western Russia, and 50 went to the Far East. And the office for Western Russia is here in Sarata, and the office for the Far East is in Vladivostok. So there are 2 Peace Corps programs in Russia. So what do volunteers do? Okay. It is not the decision of the Peace Corps what they do. Each country tells the Peace Corps what they need, what kinds of volunteers. So many of the first countries, like Ghana, like Togo, were newly independent, and they had a population that was not very educated. People had not attended school. So many of the first volunteers were teachers. Now in Russia, okay, it is a different situation, and your government has asked the Peace Corps to work in small business development. So the volunteers in Russia are here to help people who are interested in starting a business. And they are here to work with oblast, state governments, and city governments about how can government help support businesses. What kinds of laws, what kinds of taxation, what kinds of programs can they do to help the business community. So we have volunteers. We have 5 volunteers here in Sarata. We have 1 volunteer in Ingalls, 1 volunteer in Marks, 1 volunteer in Atkarsk, and 1 volunteer in Balashov. So those are the volunteers for the Saratov Oblast. But we work in 5 states. We have 13 volunteers in Nizhny Novgorod, 6 in the city of Nizhny, and then we have a volunteer in Arzamas, 1 in Viksa, 1 in Kostovo, and 1 in Pavlova. And then we have volunteers in the state of Samara, and we have 2 groups in Taliati and in Samara. Then we have volunteers in Volgograd, in Mikhailovka, and in Viksa, in Gorsky. And then we have a group of volunteers in Rostov. So those are the 5 states. And these volunteers are in business development. But we are hearing that people are interested in other programs. So we are thinking about coming and helping with business English and maybe with business. I don't know if you have a junior achievement program, but many of the volunteers are involved in programs in high schools. Many volunteers teach business in some of the institutes. So for the moment, there are 38 volunteers in Western Russia and about 35 in the Far East. But all over the world, there are 7,000 volunteers, and they work in 95 countries. And since Peace Corps came to Russia, we have come to Armenia, we have come to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, and we are going into Turkmenistan. So we are very much in this part of the world. But this part of the world was very new. As you know, your city was not open to Americans or to other people. So we have come to a part of the world that we did not know. So we are learning very quickly about Russia, about Western Russia, and the volunteers, before they begin work, they must go through 3 months of training. We sort of make them go to school, and they learn about Russia. They have 300 hours of Russian language. As you know, or maybe you don't know, your language is beautiful, but it is very difficult for an English speaker to learn it. It may be even more difficult than for you to learn English. I don't know. We could talk about that for a long time. So the volunteers learn the Russian language. They learn about Russian culture. When they were in Saratov, which is where they trained, they had families. And they would go and spend time with their families in their apartments, getting to know all about the families. They would go to the market, they would go to the opera, the ballet, they would walk along the river. They would just get out and try to live in Russia. Because the volunteers, they are not working for the U.S. government. Okay? They do not work for me. The Peace Corps volunteers work for the people of Russia. And they have a sponsor. It may be the oblast government, it may be the city government, it may be a group of business people. And those are the people that the volunteers work for. Okay? But part of being a Peace Corps volunteer is that you have your main job. You have what we call your primary job, your first job, which is to help with business development. But then we ask all volunteers to get inside their communities. And so the volunteers have business clubs, some of them have English clubs, some of them work with youth groups, and this summer many of the volunteers had gardens at dachas. And they had seed packets, and they were learning how to garden as you garden here in Russia. And also they were introducing some different kinds of vegetables that we had not seen here in Western Russia. So volunteers live and work in a country for 2 years. And then when they go home to the United States, part of their job is to teach Americans about Russia. And so when they come back, they go to schools, they go to American schools, and they talk about what it was like to live in Russia and work in Russia. And they may show some pictures, they may make a video, they bring books and maybe some matryoshka or something to show from Russia. Because it is important now that we have the opportunity to know one another, that we really try and understand one another. And sometimes the families of volunteers come to visit. We have one volunteer in the town of Vixa. His mother came with his 4 sisters. So now there are 5 people in a very small town in New York who have been to Vixa and can talk about life in a small Russian city because they were there and they saw it. So Peace Corps is just beginning. Now in some countries, Peace Corps has been living and working there for many years. Peace Corps started in 1961. It is now 1993. The volunteers are still in Ghana. So So they had been in Ghana for 32 years. So there is a large Peace Corps family in Ghana, people who have worked with Peace Corps. There are teachers who were taught by Peace Corps volunteers. So the Peace Corps is well understood in Ghana. But it was different. When I came to Sarata and started to talk about Peace Corps, people said, well, what is the Peace Corps? Why? Why do Americans want to come here and to work? And you don't pay them that much. I said, no, we will pay them the salary of a Russian who does the same kind of job. And we said, people come to Russia for many, many reasons. One of the traditions we have in America, and this is because America is a country of many different nationalities. There are Russian Americans, there are Dutch Americans, there are Irish Americans, there are Indians who were there when everybody else started to come. We have Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans, Filipino Americans. All of these people are Americans. My ancestors came from England, from Ireland, from the Netherlands, and then one of my great-great-grandmothers was an American Indian. So I am a mix. Okay, so all these people have come to America. And because we were from different parts of the world and had different religions and different languages, we had to work together to make a nation. And one of the traditions that we started was what we call being a volunteer. In other words, I would teach maybe during the day, but at night I would go and I would offer myself. Maybe I would work with older people. Maybe I would work with handicapped people. Maybe I would work with women in my community. So that many, almost every American has a job and they are paid for it. And then they have other jobs that they don't get paid for. They do because they want to. We have a woman who has just come here. She will work for 3 months in our office. And in the United States, she has a Girl Scout troop. She has 12 young girls who are 12 years old. And she has them, it's sort of like, I think, your Pioneer program. And she meets with them once a week, and they do different activities. Okay? She isn't paid to do that. She does it because she wants to and because she enjoys it. And so that is a tradition. So when people become volunteers, Peace Corps volunteers, we don't pay them a lot of money. They come because they want to and because they are curious and because they know it is important to not always be in the same place and speak the same language, but to go out and find out more about the world. So the volunteers who are here are curious people. They came because for many years it was difficult to come to Russia. It was impossible to come to Sarata. And now we can come here and we can live here. If you go to Ingalls and try to find the American there, it may take some time because she lives in an apartment like everybody else. She buys her food at the market like everybody else. She doesn't drive a car. She buys her clothes in the Zoom or in other shops. And that's what we ask volunteers to do. We ask them to come and just to be part of their community. If they came and lived in a house and drove a fancy car, they would never have the chance to really live and to experience Russia. Am I speaking too quickly? No. Okay, all right. Please raise your hand if you have, if you don't understand. So volunteers come for 2 years. And the first group of volunteers to come to Russia were very experienced. We had one man who was 79 years old. We had many people who were 60, 55, 50. And then we have some who were 40, 30. I think the youngest is maybe 26. All these people had been in business for a long time. So they had a lot of experience that they thought could be useful to Russia. They don't come with the answers. The answers are here in Russia. But they come offering their experience and their skills to see if maybe what they know and what they have done could be useful in Russia. Because your economy is changing. And some of the things we do in the West can make sense, are good for Russia. Some things are not. And over time, with Russians looking and Americans looking at something, there will be some new answers, some new ways of doing things. So the first volunteers were sworn in the Dome of Knowledge here in Saratov on February 13th. So they have been volunteers for almost 1 year. Okay? And then they will be volunteers for 1 more year. But we will bring in another group. We will bring in 50 more volunteers because we have found that people are interested. They think the volunteers are good, they're useful, and so they would like to have more. So we are going to bring in some teachers, some business English teachers, okay, and maybe some business teachers, and more business people. We have one special volunteer. He was the mayor of a city for 20 years. And when we were in Nizhny Novgorod, the mayor wanted to know if we had someone who could act as an advisor. So David Mazanti is working in the city administration in Nizhny Novgorod and helping the city to look at the things that cities do when you no longer have a centralized system, but when cities have a lot of responsibility, as they do in the United States. So Mr. Muzanti is helping the city of Nizhny Novgorod, and we hope to have other people. Some of the volunteers are bankers, some of them are lawyers, some of them were business people for a long time, some of them were in real estate, some of them had their own shops, some of them had big, huge corporations, some of them worked with computers, some of them worked in agriculture. So they brought a lot of different kinds of experience to Russia, and they hope it will be useful. All right, let me stop there, and I will hand you out. I have some calling cards, so if you have other questions, my phone number is there, okay? And let me see if you have any questions, all right? If you will take one, in the United States we say take one and pass them along.
Can I help you?
Or if you take one and then just pass them. Okay? I don't know if that's a Russian tradition as well. So, what kinds of questions do you have? What did I not tell you that you would like to know about the Peace Corps? Now let me tell you something. No secrets. Some people thought the Peace Corps was the CIA, like the KGB. Because someone said, what are those volunteers doing all over the world? What are they really doing? Are they really teaching? Are they really doing some health work? And my answer was, when I was a volunteer, was I live in a small village and I teach school. I teach English and geography and art. What is there in my village that is so very important for everyone to know? I don't know the answer to that. But all I know is that volunteers are here, and they are here because your government has asked them to come here. If someday Russia says, we don't want the Peace Corps, we pack our bags and we leave. And over the 30 years, some countries have asked the Peace Corps to leave for different reasons. And sometimes a country gets to a certain point and they no longer need the Peace Corps. So we have left countries for very different reasons. But we stay in a country as long as it is good for the country and as long as it is good for the Peace Corps. So we will be in Russia as long as your government and you, the people of Russia, think that the Peace Corps is a good thing. And I want another program. I want a program that sees Russian volunteers come to the United States. And there are people in Washington working on that. I think it is very important for Russian teachers to come and teach in high schools in the United States. You are very good at foreign languages. Americans are lazy. We don't speak foreign languages. Okay, my ancestors spoke many languages. I grew up, I only spoke English. When I went to high school, I studied Latin, then I studied Spanish. But I did not speak them. But when I went into the Peace Corps, I learned French because I was going to a French-speaking country. So I speak French, but most Americans do not speak another language. And I have met many of you, and I am very impressed because you, at a very young age, are already beginning to really speak a language. I've spoken French here with young Russians. I've spoken English. I know my daughter, who speaks a little Spanish, has spoken Spanish. So you teach languages very well, and you are very motivated. And I wish Americans were more interested. I think we tend to be what we call isolationists. We are isolated. But I hope that will change. Anyway, I am very impressed with you all, and I think it is wonderful because it's very good to know other languages. You never know when you may need to speak another language. I have used my French here in Russia, and some of your Russian words come from French words, so that makes it a little easier for me. But if you come to America, you will not find many people who speak Russian, the Russian Americans. And in high schools, sometimes we don't have much of a choice. But I think today there's a lot of interest in Russian. And now that we can be friends and talk directly, I think you will find that Americans would like to come to Russia, and that Americans will be more interested in learning Russian. And I hope that will happen. Okay, how about a question? Yes?
I want to know more of you. Please say, what's your hometown?
Okay, yes, who am I? I come from Davis, California. Okay? It is a small town. It is a university town, sort of like Saratov. There is a campus, or one branch of the University of California. My town has about 40,000 people. It is not too far from San Francisco, which is a very beautiful city. And my town is about 20 kilometers from the capital of the state of California, which is Sacramento. So I live in a small town. I grew up there, and I have lived there now for 35 years. Okay? I have a small house, and now someone else is living there. But when I leave Russia, I will go and I will live there again. It is a town where everybody rides a bicycle. It is known as the bicycle capital of the United States. Teachers ride a bicycle to work. Children ride bicycles. Old people have 3 wheels, 1 in front and 2 in back, so they don't tip over. And everybody goes everywhere. And we have, our roads are like this, and the cars are in the middle, and the bikes are on both sides. And if a car goes over there, they get a ticket from the police, because that is just for bicycles. So everybody rides a bicycle. And as you know, California doesn't have weather like Saratov. In my town of Davis, the snow fell 1 time in 14 years. And it was just a little bit, not very much. And the next day, it was gone. California is on the Pacific Ocean, so California looks towards Asia. And in California, you will find a lot of Vietnamese, a lot of Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, people from the South Pacific Islands. But not too far from my hometown is a very special, very small town of Bright. And there is a very large Russian community that goes back, I believe, about 60 years. There is a Russian Orthodox Church. And recently, with more Russians leaving, this community has been growing. So it is a small town, and it is basically a small Russian town. So California is a mix. But historically, California was part of Mexico. So that we have a lot of people who are Spanish-speaking, who came from Mexico, but who have lived there for many generations. And my town is an agricultural center. The university is well known throughout the world as an agricultural institution. And so right near where I live, grow many different kinds of crops, different kinds of fruit and nuts and field crops. And California is very important agriculturally. We produce about 30% of all the agricultural products of the United States. It is a big state, and it has very good soil, like your black earth. Ours is not black, but it's just almost as good. So we are very important for agriculture. Okay? So that's why I have one daughter. My daughter is Sarah. She is just now 17, and she goes to a boarding school in Ireland. And she will be coming to Surata on December 20th for 3 weeks. And she has been here 3 times. And for her, Surata is home. And she is learning a little Russian. And she speaks a little Irish, and she speaks some Spanish. And she has lived in 8 different countries since she was a baby. So she has lived in Africa, she has lived in the South Pacific, and now she has lived in Russia as well as Ireland. And I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. My generation in America, I was born during the Great Patriotic War, World War II, and I grew up at a time when families were large. So I am one of 4 children. And my friends maybe came from a family of 5 or 3. Small families, not too many. But now it has changed. And now we have smaller families. Because it is expensive to have children, just like Russia. You have to give them clothes, you have to educate them. And so now you find families of 2 children, or maybe just an only child. But when I was young, people had big families. So I am one of 4 children. My sister is a school teacher. Okay. One brother is a carpenter. He's a builder. And another brother is a good old bureaucrat. He works for the state of Idaho. My family, some of my family came a long time ago to the United States. Some of my family came before the revolution, before our revolution, which was in 1775. And some of my family was already there. As I told you, one of my great-great-great-grandmothers was a Cherokee Indian. And then one of my grandfathers came as an immigrant. He came from the Netherlands. His father was a butcher. The Netherlands, Holland, Amsterdam. Okay? He came because his father had 5 sons and 1 shop. So he said, okay, the oldest son gets the shop, and the rest of you will have to go somewhere. And the Netherlands is a very small country. So my grandfather got on a boat, and he came to America, and he did not like it. So he went home. And his father said, I still have 5 sons and 1 shop. So my grandfather got back on the boat, and this time, luckily, he decided to stay. But the most important thing for him as an immigrant was he wanted some land. So he worked as a driver, as a chauffeur for many years, and he kept putting money in his pocket. And one day, he was able to buy an orange grove, 70 acres of land on which orange trees grew. And so for the rest of his life, he worked on the land. So my family is old America, my family is new America, my family is a big mix. Anytime someone tells you they're an American, unless they are 100% Indian, you must ask them, well, what kind of American? Are you Irish, Russian? You know, and people will tell you that their ancestors came from many, many different parts of the world. So we call it a melting pot, all these different ethnic groups. And we have, over the years, tried to make one country. And as you know, that is never easy. We have had a civil war, just like you have had. We have had difficult problems with, understanding one another. You probably know the name Martin Luther King, who worked very hard on behalf of the African Americans. Because when the blacks came to America, they did not come as free people. They came as slaves. And it took time to change that situation. And even today, you always have a history behind you that you have to be aware of. And so we are still today trying to make it a good place for white Americans, for black Americans, for Oriental Americans. And some cities work very well. And some cities have lots of problems. And we also, like Russia, we have economic problems. We have an economy that is also changing. Today, machines can do the work that people used to do. So we have unemployment. We have people that don't have jobs. And that can be very difficult if you have a family and you don't have money to feed your children. So that, we have our problems and we are trying to work on them as well. And as we send Peace Corps volunteers to work in other countries, we also have volunteers who work in the United States. So, is that enough about me?
Yes.
Okay? Yes.
Aren't you missing your daughter? And else, has your daughter chosen your future profession? And will she be a volunteer like you?
Mm. My daughter, I miss my daughter very much. Yes, I am very close to her. My daughter is a poet. She likes to write. And so she would like to continue to study writing. She would like to go to university. And right now, she would like to go to university in England. Okay, she has lived so many years away from America that she is not very American. But yes, she would like to join the Peace Corps. She would like to. Sarah has spent many years in Africa, and she would like to return to Africa and be a volunteer there. So I think maybe someday she will be. All right, any other questions? Yes?
You said that Peace Corps volunteers have different religions. What is your religion?
I am a Protestant. My daughter goes to a school, a Quaker school. She Society of Friends. But I was baptized a Presbyterian, so it is the Protestant faith. But in Saratov, I sometimes go to the Trinity Cathedral because I live very near there. And even though I don't understand some of the language spoken, I enjoy listening to the music, and I understand the ritual. And I think the church is very beautiful. So even though I can't go to a Protestant church in Saratov, I can go to a church. But in my neighborhood, there are many, many different faiths. I have many Jewish friends. In fact, the neighbors across the street from me are Jewish. And so in my neighborhood, we celebrate all the holidays. We celebrate Hanukkah, which is the Jewish festival of lights. We celebrate Easter and Christmas. We celebrate some of the Indian holidays. I think it is a wonderful time and a wonderful way to learn about other societies. So in my neighborhood, we look at all the ethnic groups and we do all the celebrations. I celebrate Chinese New Year's. When I went to university, I shared a house with Chinese women. So in February, I make special foods and I eat with chopsticks and I enjoy Chinese New Year's. So it's very important. It's very rich. My life has been very rich. I feel very, very privileged to have been able to have lived in all these countries. I know many people have not had that opportunity, and I'm very thankful that I have. I had a grandfather who loved to travel, so I think that he passed that on to me, and so I am still traveling. Let's see, someone else had their hand up. You had a question? Any other? Yes, uh-huh.
Exactly. How long you are volunteer of the Peace Corps?
Okay, the volunteers sign for 2 years. And then if they would like to stay, they can stay for a 3rd or a 4th year. For example, I myself, I was a volunteer for 3 years. I went as a teacher, and then I was living in a very poor village, and I began to know some of the health problems. And I began to talk with some of the mothers, and I began to look and see what the problems were. So I stayed a 3rd year and worked in health work. But most volunteers stay for 2 years, and then if they want, they can stay for a 3rd year.
Well, Mrs. Woodward, these girls are going to sing a song for you.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Yes, well.
My pony is over the ocean, my pony is over the sea, my pony is over the ocean, oh bring back my pony to me. Bring back, oh bring back my pony to me,
I like it very much. I think this is a beautiful city. I enjoy being able to walk. I enjoy being able to go to the opera and the symphony. I love the museum, although it is closed now. I find it a very easy city to live in. I enjoy the market. That was the first place in Saratov I visited. And of course the market is very important because I do my cooking, I do my shopping. And it was also very important because that's where I learned Russian. I had to learn the numbers, I had to learn to ask for things. So I enjoy Saratov very much. I love living on the Volga River. I had heard about the Volga River all my life, and I never ever thought that I would live on the banks of the Volga. My apartment is right near the river. I live not too far from here, your school director. So I enjoy it very much. It is different when you come to a city. You have lived here all your lives, and I come to it as an older person, but I think it's wonderful. My daughter Sarah, she also likes the city very much. There's a lot to do here. There's a lot to do here. Okay? Any other questions? I think it would be wonderful someday if Russia had a peace corps. If you had people that came from Russia to countries all over the world, particularly the United States. That would be good for us to have more Russians come as visitors and come to live and work. Question?
Yes. You could say that Russian people can go to America to learn and to live there. And American people, can they go to Russia?
Can what?
Can they go to Russia?
Yes, it is much easier. As you know, before it was very difficult for us to come here and for you to go there. And today, it is much, much easier. You must have a passport and you must have a visa. The passport says you can leave, and the visa says you can enter. Okay? And I know that sometimes it is still difficult for you to get passports to leave, but I think it is becoming easier. But for an American to come to Russia, we have to apply for a visa. And unless there is some kind of problem, unless you are someone that Russia does not want to come, then it is easy enough to come. Before I came, I had an uncle and an aunt who came as visitors. And my mother is going to come to St. Petersburg in May. There are many different groups that are coming. And I have heard stories about particularly the Volga Germans who left. Many who went to the United States, they are now coming back and trying to find their families and their relatives. And I think as it becomes easier, there will be more and more Americans coming. Let me tell you the story of one friend. This is a person who is a good friend, and she met your school director. Lana came to Saratov to help with our training program. Her parents were Russian. They were refugees after the war. Her parents were nuclear physicists, and they decided after the war they did not want to come back to Russia. They did not want to work in defense industry. They didn't want to get involved. Thank you, Marina, for asking.
And maybe you'll come here.
Thank you. All right, thank you. And good luck with your English. Don't give up. It is difficult, but you will learn to speak it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and my daughter. No, not at all. Okay, all right. Yes, okay. I would like to. Maybe sometime I can come with some pictures or something. Okay. Well, this was wonderful. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Корпус мира. These cars. Чуть ручку.
Our German teacher just came the day before yesterday from Germany. She stayed there 5 weeks ago.
Was that a
And
special
she
program
taught,
for
and she
teachers?
taught at school there. She
Yeah.
taught
Oh,
at
did
school,
she?
yes. In German. She taught mathematics, different subjects in
Great.
German.
What a wonderful experience.
And today, she's very
She's
nice
a
to
good
how one of our brilliant mathematicians girl
Mhm.
last fall is invited on the World Conference in Mathematics in China.
Who is she?
Dublin's
Dublin's
Conference.
Oh, she
Oh.
will go to China.
To China, isn't that wonderful? What an experience.
It's a dream.
She is very brilliant girl.
Yeah. What an opportunity to come back and tell everybody about China.
You know, I'm in Saratoga.
It's interesting because we are thinking about doing a program with English teaching. And the question is, what could a volunteer do? Where would the best assignment be for this person? Probably not in a classroom, but maybe more being a resource for those of you who are English teachers. How would you use, if we brought in a volunteer who was an experienced teacher, who had advanced degrees in the teaching of English, what would you like that person to do for you? How could they be useful to you? Asking her, how would you use someone? What could this volunteer do?
Excuse me, is it yours?
No?
No.
Give it to somebody else, but it's mine.
But I think that is one of the things we are looking at, we are studying, is if we did bring some English teachers in, how could we
It
use
was
them?
great for us to speak with native speakers.
What,
Have in-service training, that's a
you
good
know,
idea.
what Peace Corps can do in this school in way of business?
Santa Barbara, yes. Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is very nice. I actually come from San Francisco, which is very far from Santa Barbara, but I used to live in Los Angeles for 5 years, and Los Angeles is very near Santa Barbara, and it's a very, very beautiful place. I actually have never seen the program in Santa Barbara, but I know I have Russian friends that see it and like it very much. So what do you know about the United States? What questions do you have? Do you have any questions about the United States?
I will ask some question about you.
Of course, you have questions about it.
Let's say, where have you got your education?
Where did I get my education?
Yes.
Well, I have two degrees. I don't know what's the Russian.
Scientific degrees?
Well, I have a scientific, I have an engineering degree. In America, what you do is when you graduate from school, you graduate from school when you're 18 years old, about 17, 18, you graduate from high school. And then you go to university for 4 years, okay, and you specialize just like you would in national. You specialize in engineering or business or art or whatever, literature, and then you get a bachelor's degree. After 4 years of college, you get a bachelor's degree. And I got a bachelor's degree in engineering. And then I worked as an engineer, and then I went again to university for 2 more years to get a master's degree in management.
Seems it takes much interest in management.
Management, yes.
No, it's in.
So what do you think about the future? What do you want to become? Who wants to go into business?
Who wants to do business? Well, law comes first. There will be a lot of laws.
In America, we have too many laws. Too many laws and too many lawyers. It's a problem. It's a big problem.
But you're a country of law, and we're lawless.
So, what other questions do you have? About Peace Corps? So I'm a representative of the U.S. government. So I'm like a small ambassador of America in Saratoga. What Peace Corps does is that it sends volunteers like me to many different countries. I think right now Peace Corps has volunteers in about 90 different countries around the world. And we work without any salary for 2 years.
No money.
No money. And we have all left jobs and homes and family to come here to live, and we work for 2 years, and then we go back home. So,
Honorable.
Have you been in any other countries before Russia?
have I been to? Yes, I've been to England, Japan, India, New Zealand, Australia.
Is it your first visit to Russia?
Yes, I had been here, well, I came here 1 year ago, and that was my first time. What about you? What do you people like about Saratov? What is your favorite thing about Saratov? Huh? You can't say?
You take it
How
as
about,
it is.
you take it in, how about springtime? How about this time of the year? Do people like spring when it's nice, warm?
Do you like
sunny?
spring? Yes, it's right.
It's very dirty.
Dirty and dusty, yeah.
Well, that's true, but it's warm.
Very difficult to study in this.
It's difficult.
Yes, to stay school.
To stay in school, you want to be outside playing. Yes, I understand. I remember this. Yes, it's nice. So, do you like what is your favorite subjects in school? What kind? Well, first of all, how many subjects do you have? How many different subjects? What are the subjects you take? Huh? Algebra and what else? No algebra.
Well,
What?
favorite subject.
English? Okay. And what else? What other subjects do you have? Huh?
Information.
Computers. And
World art culture.
world art culture. Geography, you take geography, you know?
Yes, geography, history,
History,
social science.
literature, yes. And you, what else? Science, I guess science, biology. So what subjects will you take next year that you're not taking now? Will there be some difficult subjects? And do you know what you're going to take next year? What kind of subjects? No?
Oh, same, I suppose.
The same subject? The same subject?
The same. Yes, perhaps the number of lessons will be different, but on the whole, they have wonderful the same curriculum.
And when will you start thinking about which institute where you want to go? When? Is it usually, you don't even think about that now. It's too far away, right? Yeah? Is it too far away to think about institutes? No? The time will come later.
They want to go to some other country to
Yes?
continue education. Do you know?
Yes.
Of course.
Some of them take seriously music and art.
Yes. Is it not, does everybody have to take music, for example?
No, it's not compulsory for everybody.
That you,
Special music schools, they attend special classes, music classes, no? And some of them are quite professional in playing piano. And then flute, yes. The piano, the flute, the oboe, yeah? Oboe, that's it. Now, they are professional musicians because their parents are musicians, professional musicians, you see?
They take up
Yes,
But
they
they-
take after their mothers and fathers.
but that's in addition to the regular class.
Yes,
class.
yes, yes, yes.
So what, you start school at what, 8 o'clock? 8, what time do you come to school?
No, it's the same shift. When do you come to school?
The problem is that school is very busy and it works from 8 o'clock in the morning till almost 8 in the evening. 2 shifts. So this year they are in the second shift. So they start from 2 o'clock till 15 minutes. It's just a bus.
The school is too small, you see, for all the pupils to go to one shift. They begin now their classes at 1 o'clock and Sometimes at 2 o'clock, yes. And sometimes at 12 o'clock. See?
So how many in a week, how many hours of English do you use?
7 hours.
2 hours a day?
Yes, approximately 2 or 1 hour a day, yes, 7 or 8 hours.
And what are you studying right now? What is the topic for today?
So the topic, early Britain, medieval Britain, very interesting book. Now, today's topic is medieval towns. How towns appeared in Britain. Yes.
So I guess you,
After
most
the
of
Norman
the
conquest.
so most of the books, English books, is British books. You have mostly you study British.
Now, this year, yes, Britain is our topic. Next year, we have America. Yes, we have a lot of material about America, especially about the discovery of America by Columbus. Now, from last year, magazines, you see now some American guests brought them last year. And we have a lot to speak and to read. No,
No, they take it as a second language, French.
Second language?
The whole.
Well, what's the matter? Why aren't you eloquent today?
Very quiet.
They have grown up. Yes, when they were young, they were so brave. Now, when they were in the third grade, they asked a lot of questions. Now.
So have you had the same feelings for how many years?
Sorry?
Have you had the same feelings for how many years?
Yeah. For 5 years now.
5 years, same
The same pupils, and now they only
So you
teach.
see them.
Yes.
That's actually the normal thing.
Normal thing is the teacher stays.
Teacher takes most and then carries them on.
They're on the third grade.
Do I have a hobby? My hobby, I have different hobbies, but my biggest hobby is traveling. That's why I'm in Russia.
Now, please, sure. I'm tired now.
Do you have any, I like cats. I like cats. I never had pets of my own, but I had friends who had pets, and so I would be at their house, I would play with their pets. And cats, animals that I like very much. Not dogs, I don't like dogs. For some reason I never liked dogs.
I like dogs, males like dogs. Well, Sinchka. Do you want to know anything?
Do you know there's a difference between how Americans speak and British people speak? Do you know how do you spell color? How would you spell color? What's the spelling of color?
What about color? What about telegram? What about program? Perhaps they do not pay attention because we have only English text, color without you.
Well, can someone spell, how do you spell color? Can someone spell color for me?
O-U, color. In American, only O, okay? Yes, program, telegram, now without an E. Now, a lot of different, yes. But they feel the difference when some American girls, now Maxime's friends, they are Mormons now, when they come here and they start speaking, they are from mid-America, you see, while now a lot of around sounds, and the sounds are not distinct. They understand, but they feel the difference somehow, they feel it. Don't you? Oh, yes, you do feel. You do feel the difference.
Yes, you have a question.
What's your favorite Russian
teleprompter?
How can you watch it?
That's a good question because, I just, for almost 1 year I didn't have a television because I never got time to books covering many different subjects. And we will have magazines covering again many different aspects of American life. And also a lot of materials on American English. And not just books and magazines, but videotapes and audio tapes. And also information about exchange programs for teachers of English, for students of English, high school, college, postgraduate, because there's many exchange programs for Russian people to study in the U.S. And there isn't this one place where people can go and get this information. All this information is mostly in Moscow and it doesn't come down to Saratov. So the center will have all this information, and we're going to help staff with library training and helping people here how to apply for these different programs. For example, I know the Source Foundation is being accepting applicants. What we want to do is actually even try to have some Americans before that time to work out of the center and work with you all, people like you that are teaching English, teachers of English in schools, teachers of English in institutes. I think there's an interest here in Saratov on the part of the teachers, I think on the part of students, to learn American English. Because I think all, for many years it's been British English, so we think there's a need. And I think you have to tell us that whether that's true or not, and what kinds of information you need, and resources, and teaching. Do you feel like you get enough resources in English, books, materials? I know you mentioned we had some Americans come here and made some materials. What is the big problems that you have in teaching English?
I suppose it would be very nice to have some regular course of lectures about America here, regularly, weekly, you see?
About America or about English?
Some of you now should come regularly here to deliver us some lectures about America. Now, regularly, once a week at least. It would be nice.
Okay, and that's because
it was a great help.
For the English part or for the cultural part? For what reason?
I suppose both. There's some history, some cultural information, some...
Okay.
So, yes, any information you think best, perhaps.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we are, of course we can do that, but I think what we want to do is even go beyond that, just having volunteer come in. The idea for the center is to be a cultural center, Russian American cultural center, and to organize events, organize maybe some movies, because we have videotapes, for example, on American authors, American composers, American filmmakers, documentaries in English and also in Russian that will be kept in the center. And so we want to kind of use these resources for cultural events, but we need help, assistance to organize these.
For example, in our school we have enough equipment to show video films or just the film strips, whatever it is. But materials are not enough, of course. Equipment is here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I'm looking for is how can the different institutes and schools use the center? Because, for example, we will have videotapes. Now, I think we want to give these videotapes to people that are just coming in. We don't want to lend videotapes to these people, but maybe we have a special policy for schools that can borrow these tapes.
Just borrow for 1 day.
1 day, 2 days, to show it in schools. And all of these are, can be shown on Russian, with equipment, so you don't need American equipment for that. So that's the thing that we want to develop, is some policies that will help the institutions. And I guess that's what I'm looking for, is what kinds of videotapes, what aspects of American culture is interesting. Is it literature? Is it art, history?
History and art, first of all.
History and art. History and art is the most.
That's for teachers of English.
Teachers of English. American language.
Language too. And many of them speak this variant.
The variant. And is that because they watch American films?
They watch films a lot. Yes, they are influenced. They pronounce some words differently, or the way Americans do.
Okay. One of the things that we will be having very soon, actually it's first or second week of May, is a person from Moscow who works in the embassy there, a specialist in American English, and working with teachers of English in Russia. And he will be coming to Saratov to meet with just the teachers, not the students. But so he will give presentations on how to teach American English. I think he will bring resources and those things. I, by the way, got some books for him. Unfortunately, we couldn't. If you want, I just bring it and show this to you. We will have many more copies of these books at the center. And this is actually just the this particular book is part 1 of a series of 4. This is just the beginning, series 1. I mean part 1. And these are copies for you all. And, unfortunately, we don't have many copies, but these are just examples of books that we will have in the center that cover American English, not only the language, but of course give people insights about American realities, like how do people make a phone call, how do place a collect call, so
Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes, Thanksgiving dinner. And this is a copy of the tape that goes with
the book.
Goes with the book. There's about 10 units, and so there's 10 units. These are. So yeah, like I said, so this is just a start.
This is just for beginners, is it?
Yes, this is just part 1. It's 4 parts. Right now, I only have the part 1. But this part 2, part 3, part 4 that gets into more detail and more complex things.
Very nice. Valuable presentations.
So these copies or whatever. So yeah, so we will have books about American grammar, dictionaries, things like that. That will all be in the center. And I don't know how of course we will have limited resources. We want to have extras that we can just be able to give to many schools, and so they will be kept, and of course can be borrowed. And I don't know what's the best way for institutions to borrow these materials. Will teachers just come and make copies because we will have a Xerox machine in this center? So I think that would be the option, was just for you all to come and see if you see anything interesting, and just make copies. We will have videotapes on American English, other audio tapes to go with other kinds of books. So we will have all those.
Well, we for example, have enough equipment to borrow tape from the center, copy it, and return it back. And most of the schools will have it.
Okay. Well, the thing is, one of the things that Saratov Library that we're working with is a very, very nice library, very good people. And this is all new for them. And working with us, working with materials like, audio tapes, video tapes, and things. So,
having closed a long time.
Yeah, so
no communication is important.
So we have to come up with a good system that will work for everyone. Do you work at all with Saratov Library? Do you have contacts, relationships with them?
Yes.
Do you use the resources then? Do they have resources for you?
our subject.
No. There are some books, but no video cassettes, you see, only no.
But books
No,
about...
There are books, yes, long valuable books.
So you would go and borrow them? And
Yeah, we have
But there are very
constant
small
contact with the
publications.
library, but not for language, for different things.
We are in great need of all these things, you see, because they are not available so easily.
Right.
There was some modern things,
One
you
thing.
see.
Well, as soon as
Some
this...
technique which will help us.
Okay. Well, we're going to have many different books, so as soon as the center opens, you're all welcome.
Well, we
Come
will be
in.
the first to come.
Yes, please.
But the major thing, of course, not even materials, but exchange of ideas and talk with people from the States. That's
Well,
I think the most important.
exactly, and that's what we want to use this center for. Is not just a place where people come in and borrow books, but one of the things that that's very nice about this library, they have a very big conference room. Okay, and we have already bought a television and VCR that will be put in this conference room, which we hope to use for special events and special showing of films and having speakers come in.
Congress
Maybe this library would be able to invite some speakers to come and sort of
Yes,
topics,
exactly.
or even maybe they would like to visit schools and see our way of teaching and vice versa. That's most.
Well, this person that's coming, this American person, English specialist, American, I think he's very interested in meeting you all and finding out how he can help. He's a specialist, so I'm sure he can offer some recommendations and give some information. I just have some other things. As I was telling you in the class, that I'm from San Francisco.
Yes.
And this is, I think, the most beautiful place in all of America. And this is just a calendar for you all. This picture calendar place right in San Francisco. It's a map of USA.
That's one. Yes.
And we bought some boxes of this magazine. I don't know, have any of you read this magazine before? American?
Yeah, it was quite popular.
Before? And
it was printed in Russian.
no, this is not printed in Russian. This magazine.
This is in Russian.
Yeah, it's in Russian.
The Stars and Stripes.
They all in Russian, not
Yeah, these are all in Russian. We will have magazines, many magazines in our center, but these are all in Russian, and these are issues for the past 2 years, and then there are many more copies in the boxes that are in that room. So this is for your library, so there's...
Thank you.
So, any questions? Is there any information I can give you, or any questions about the center, or anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to see in the center?
The questions were clear on the center. It's established and organized, yes. But now, the first and primary thing we want, personal contacts.
Personal contacts.
Between you and our pupils, first of all.
Well, that is our job as Peace Corps volunteers. Our job is to do whatever we can for the community, because this is our community. For 2 years, this is our home. So whenever we receive invitations for volunteers that work in Načalo.
There's a new will come soon.
We will have some new ones coming in September. Has any volunteer come here from this school?
Yeah.
We had volunteers.
That's Karen, right?
She was actually the director of this school. She's a volunteer, and she's no longer the director. But yeah, I mean, if you want, we can arrange for I can come, and then you can have some of the other volunteers that are in the department.
Yes, let them come often and deliver something interesting, some interesting information about America.
So, would you like to see
Yes,
the school?
yes, could you please show me?
Can I show?
Мужчины встали, женщины двигают. Кресло.
Легкие.